Wellington is rapidly turning into a place to work in, but not to live in. Great office blocks are towering upwards in ever-increasing numbers. Houses are being demolished to make room for them, but replacement accommodation is not being found in Wellington for the displaced people, or for young people starting out on married life. All this surplus population is now being housed in the dormitory towns such as Nainai, Taita, Tawa, Porirua. But all these towns are really only suburbs of Wellington, for the working population migrates there in their thousands every morning. And in the evening, the exodus is just as great, leaving Wellington almost deserted by 7. This is the story of the development of one of these dormitory towns, Porirua. Porirua lies in a basin between 2 hills, and the floor of the basin was not very much above sea level, and was consequently prone to almost annual flooding from the Porirua stream. So the first stages of development of the intended commercial centre was to raise the whole area by a minimum of 3 feet, and in some places by as much as 8 feet. Also to extend the usable land by filling in part of Porirua Harbour. This was a huge undertaking, demanding the moving of 11 million cubic yards of rock and clay fill, which was scoured from the surrounding hills. This was only the beginning. The engineers had many other problems to overcome in developing the area before building could commence. The preparatory filling and levelling work took the best part of 4 years to complete. With all this earthwork, all existing roads were buried deep under tons of fill. None of the original winding roads survived, so here was a chance to completely reorganize the new roads and make sure they were well planned and well made. For safety's sake, under the busiest sections, pedestrian tunnels were built, so making driving less nerve-wracking and less dangerous for pedestrians. Not only were all the old roads lost, but every building in the basin was demolished, and with them went all the reminders of Porirua's early history. They included several cottages, a cinema, a school, a bank, the post office, and all the shops, which were centred around the railway station. As a fill-in between the time the old shops were pulled down and the building of the new ones in the proposed shopping centre, a temporary building to house 6 shops and the post office was placed in position at the back of the old hotel. All the dust and the demands of a large number of thirsty workers may have had something to do with the introduction of a tavern into a previously dry area. To show how well patronized it is, their first year's turnover totaled £292,000. But the tavern isn't the first place to dispense liquor in Porirua. The old hotel was once the meeting house and centre of all social activities, and its large bar room once rang with the sound of clinking glasses and the hum of noisy conversation. But at the time these shots were made, there was a much soberer atmosphere in the main bar room, for the council elections were being announced and chalked up. In fact, this was a new lease of life for the old hotel, for it had been in a derelict condition since a disastrous fire gutted part of the building many years ago. The council offices were originally in Wellington, but with the area growing so rapidly, it was decided to move to Porirua, and as a temporary measure, renovate and occupy the old hotel. The original intention was to be there for only 2 years, but they were destined to be there for 4. The hotel has since been demolished. Bulldozers with steel cables removed every sign of its 100 years of history in minutes. So vanished Porirua's last link with the past. When all the filling was finished, before factories, shops and offices could be built, drain layers went into action to lay all the sewer and storm water pipes. And also the post office laid pipes for telephone wires, and the Hutt Valley Electricity Board were busy too, putting their installations underground, for the council did not want the commercial centre disfigured by a forest of power poles. In 1956, the Porirua water supply was joined to the Wellington municipal water supply system, bringing in plenty of badly needed water. Before this time, new house occupiers were advised by their neighbours to make sure they kept their tubs and coppers full as an emergency supply. Water was a fickle commodity in those days, and it was a common experience to hear taps give a smug chortle as the water supply ran out. Until 1956, the whole of the developed area from Tetai Bay to Porirua East depended upon Duck Creek, an unreliable water course in an obscure fastness of the eastern foothills, for its water supply. With the building sites now ready, intending builders of shops were informed of the design and architectural requirements which would have to be met in the town centre. The government, who are the instigators of this unique development scheme, is naturally concerned, as is the council, who will eventually take over the administration of the area, that buildings should be of a high standard and of a good design, which will be a credit to the area and which will mould in with the envisaged scheme as a whole. The Design and Architectural Committee drew up a list of requirements which would have to be met and included. Certain types of finishes for buildings have been designated, and the general appearance of buildings will be closely watched to ensure that there are no unsightly features. The architects have already given indications of their willingness to cooperate with the committee, while leaving themselves quite free to determine their own building design. Plans have already been presented for inspection to the Office of the Borough Building Inspector for the firms of Woolworths, James Smith's, Radfords, the Maypole, and about 12 smaller businesses. Provision is also made and sites allocated for municipal buildings. Many light industries have started up in the last few years. The Kodak Laboratory was one of the first to build. Ashley Wallpapers was another early starter. So was Olympic Stationery and Knight's Footwear. It might be of interest to mention in passing that industry is nothing new to Porirua, for it was a cargo of whale oil and whale bone from George Tom's whaling station at the entrance to Porirua Harbour that constituted the very first cargo exported from Wellington to London on the 2nd of March 1841 on the barque Brougham. In 1962, the Queen made her second visit to New Zealand, and on her itinerary of places to visit this time was Porirua. The children from all the local schools as far as Paikakariki were given the day off, so they'd be able to line the streets of Porirua East to greet her. But it's very unlikely that many of them, after their long wait, actually saw her, for the car she rode in was a closed one. I wonder what she thought as the panorama of state houses passed by.
Hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes, little boxes, little boxes, all the same. There's a green one and a pink one, a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family, and they all get put in boxes, little boxes all the same. There's a green one and a pink one, a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Between 38 and 40 retail stores are expected to be completed in the town centre in a little over 4 months. Permits for over £675,000 worth of commercial buildings were issued by the council in the financial year ending last March. It is apparent that the commercial firms see the business potential available to them by being located in this area, and large numbers of them are erecting their buildings to the maximum coverage permitted. The first shops were soon having the final touches put to them, and several began opening their doors to an enthusiastic public. Crowds of shoppers from the surrounding district went to the new shopping centre this morning for the opening of 2 big new stores, Radfords and Woolworths. When the Mayor, Mr. Brown, cut the ribbon and officially opened the doors of Radfords at 9:30, There were about 150 people in the store. Trade in materials was very brisk all the morning, and women were inspecting the furniture with an eye to future buying. Shortly after, James Smith's department store was officially opened, and in the speech by the Mayor was welcomed both as an expanding service of this well-known firm and also as a further indication of the rapid development that is now occurring in the town centre. The centre is already providing most of the services and facilities required for a community of 20,000 people, but there will be an even wider range of businesses and commercial enterprises by the end of the year. Not only will this engender a spirit of competition and good service, but will also tend to make Porirua the focal point of this district. The competition between the various shops and businesses plying for customers brought on expensive advertising campaigns. Woolworths seemed to be well out in front with the best stunts when 2ZB used their store as the focal point of a commercial radio program, in which John Maybury allowed himself to be used as a target for a custard pie throwing contest, and all the ladies seemed to be excellent shots. On another occasion, self-help was the scene of the morning quiz program.
Hi there, everybody. Here we are at Self-Help in Porirua, all set to go with the exciting climax of our feature quiz that's been running throughout the week during the Porirua celebrations. We have a winner, Mrs. Alison Alexander of Tawa, and she's moving off at a very brisk pace for a start. Seems to have a little pattern lined up. She bobs up and down.
In recent years, many clubs have started up, mostly sports clubs, but there are others. The Scottish Country Dance Club, for instance, has a strong and very keen membership. It's through clubs like this that young people with similar interests in the district can get acquainted, and in this case sufficiently well to become engaged. Social activities are very important to the development of a community. The average age of the overall population of Porirua is 7. With such a predominantly young population, and with the young people getting married earlier these days, the birth rate in the district is consequently well above the country's average. So a maternity hospital was built just for Porirua, and I believe even this building has been found inadequate for the purpose. Some mothers still have to make the long dash to Wellington Hospital. The great day arrived. The Governor-General was to declare Porirua a city, and the Mayor, Mr. Brown, summed up very aptly in his speech. There will never, in the life of this community, be a day of greater importance or significance than this one. Today we have set our sights on the start, but that is only the beginning. If we have the will to work and the courage and the moral fortitude, the stars are within our reach. My hope for Porirua is not that it becomes rich and powerful or dominant among its neighbours or vast in its extent, but that it becomes a pleasant and happy place where good people can lead a good life. The standard of maturity we ultimately achieve will reflect not the dreaming and the planning and the activity of successive mayors and councils, but the simple quality of the people that we are. And he asked us to remember the motto of Porirua, Mo Tikatoa Na Mahi. All that is done is for the good of all.